Hello and welcome back to Montreal by night. So, to start over and do the joint with probably the mid season because I traveled from Australia to Canada and so my setup had changed, maybe I can restart reading from the beginning with my new few hours of practice. And have a similar setup just to have cohesion in serie, I guess. Why not? And then I would probably have more time to practice drawing and come up with some sketches for the characters. Yes, I need to work on that, I know. Imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. That is the three um, concept that Wabi Sabi is actually trying to teach us. Nothing will be good enough ever. Nothing will be perfect. Nothing will be permanent. So let's enjoy the good time together. So, if I start back at page 1, let's begin again. Let's go into full screen mode. So let's start again Montreal by night. Go. The city of 1,000 steeples. I'm not sure it's gonna be much better than the first recording, but at least it'll have the same lighting. Welcome to Montreal. Montreal. See, I can't even say the freaking title properly. An allowed shrine of our most. Can I zoom in? Yeah, there you go. Of our most glorious Sabbath. We're so glad you came. Walk our catacombs in search of blasphemous knowledge. Enjoy all manner of titillating diversions with our deliciously putrescent toy. And forget that language barrier nonsense. We'd be delighted to hear you scream for mercy in English or French. It's supposed to be kind of recalibrating, but it's not right now. The City of Black Miracles. Montreal by Night is the latest in the series of By Night books. For Vampire the Masquerade, however, this book is unique because it's also the next in the Black Dog series. Montreal belongs to the Sabbath. We just couldn't do justice to the enemies of the Camarilla in any other way. So head north if you dare and don't eat the red snow. Montreal by Night features the first combination Sabbath, Black Dog, and By Night book ever. A dark treat for every Vampire the Masquerade player and storyteller. New information on the Sabbath Inquisition and a brand new path to follow. A complete city setting to play with. How long does it take to destroy a place? Welcome to the Litany of Blood. That part is never really readable. But I mean, come on, can I resist? Why all the saints and sages we discussed are the two worlds so what? Learnedly are thrust like foolish prophet forth, and their words to scorn are scattered, and their months are stopped. with dust. Omar Khayyam, as translated by Edward Fitzgerald, the Rubaiyat. Okay. Upon the shoes of night, she sits in a black river, resplendent beneath the artificial mantle of the citadel's torchlit stars. Tread well upon the street, for her beauty exact a price, and her shadows breathe. Her mane shimmered with the impetus of faith, and her bosom sighed like a passing ghost. Such is Montreal, the quiet city. The mystery of this place escapes the understanding of even the most intuitive. Haha. The play cast upon a highland stage begins, a lethal dance dedicated to the Alpes battle trail. Whale? I'm not sure, the police is a bit weird. The font, the police is weird, but the font as well. The dead in the city steels themselves to storms within and without. A melody so tender to the ears of sweet chaos. See? Looks like a freaking TIM, whatever. Sweet. So that's a W, okay. The coin of power has been flipped and now plummets downward. So too must the Sabbath of Montreal travel in order to regain control. And should the coin fall too far, whether by design or fate, they may drag everyone down with them. Montreal by night, the prelude. Oh yeah, that weird font as well. Cardinal Strathcona. I would ask how fortune smiles upon you these days, but I know fate has dealt us a cruel blow. The death of my mentor and your colleague Zoo has left us bereft of dear friend and valued champion of the Sabbath. You ask me if Montreal was still the city of black miracles, and budged at my hesitation when I could not answer. I fear now that whatever answer I may have formed since those days have been undermined by deliberate attempt to shroud the truth. The death of thou merely brought certain issues to the fore in the dark time after my induction into the Sabbath. Many were relieved to have weathered the storm. I know now that we merely stood in its eye. We in Montreal are about to cast back into the capricious nightmare. Those death, I suspect, was only an omen of things to come. When I was asked to tend to my mentor's remains and belonging, I approached the matter with trepidation. Zoo couldn't do no wrong in my eyes, and I feared, perhaps subconsciously, that assuming such a task would only prove that it did indeed fall the ultimate weakness, death. Yet I steeled myself to what had to be done, and discovered an odd comfort in the act of sorting through his belonging. That is, when I discovered his codes. As you well know, Zoo was fond of artworks, particularly Taoist influenced pieces. He was quite adept at painting landscapes, applying a balanced approach to the dynamics of nature. He even taught me how to interpret paintings, not as reproductions, but as symbolic representation. I now suspect that he was not grooming me to appreciate Chinese artwork, but tutoring me in how to decipher an intricate code should any harm befall him. In sorting through those paintings, I came across an art pad filled with Montreal's landscape pointed in the Taoist manner. I immediately noticed that the pieces were subtly imbalanced. The yin and yang of features and animals were stilted. Yeah. Harmony was askew. At first, I wondered if this had been Zhu's early failed attempt to perfect his craft, but the style of his brushstrokes suggested more recent work. Whether it was inspiration or luck, something in his pieces urged me to visit the site Zhu had depicted in his paintings. It was some time before the first mystery revealed itself to me. His paintings, true to his lessons, were not actual representation, but the piece of a Taoist map. Thus, it was through the paintings that I discovered the first of the ledger that Zhu had hidden in the city. Some time ago, my friend made a discovery that he shared only with the pages that he wrote upon. He broke the code to the ramblings of Jacob the Glitch, the Tremere anti-tribute who is regularly given to visions and speaking in tongues. My gifted mentor had somehow discovered a way to translate Jacob's Babylonian blather. How that must have frightened him. But despite any apprehension he may have felt, but despite any apprehension he may have left, no. I leave my apprehensions. Why not? That's what I'd like to do. Maybe it's a Freudian slip. But despite any apprehension he may have felt, Zhu recorded the Tremere's word in his ledger and hid them so that no one would know the horrible truth he learned. I do not know what to do, Cardinal. I know more books are hidden in the city, but I have been reticent to retrieve them. Some force shadows my every steps. Some foreshadow my every step. I can't evade it. I can't confront it. But I know that harm will soon befall me. Upon awakening, I know that my lair has been disturbed while I slumbered. I have taken to rest in the communal heaven, but I fear its walls are no protection against an untimely end. Um, 14 minutes. I feel like it's been an hour. Chapter 1. Let me introduce you. No, penury, inertness, and grimace. In some strange sort, where the land's portion, See, I'll shut your eyes, said nature peevishly. It nothing skills, I can't help my case. 'Tis the last judgment's fire must cure these plays. Calcine its clods and set my prisoners free. Robert Browning, child Roland to the dark tower came. Why Black Dog? Montreal by Night is the first vampire series of city setting books to be released under the Black Dog Game Factory imprint. Why break the mold? Why go against tradition? What's so unique about Montreal of all places that demand special attention? This is not the Montreal that you might know. This book portrays a city that's tainted not only by the corruption inherent to the world of darkness and the gothic punk milieu, but by the unadulterated evil of the Sabbath. This Montreal is an unabashedly twisted reflection of the real world. Thus, this book isn't for the timid, young, easily offended, or squeamish. It wasn't meant to be. Thus, this book isn't for the timid, young, easily offended, or squeamish. It wasn't meant to be. Yet, it is not simply violent and reprehensible for its own sake. Montreal by Night earns the Black Dog label because of the city's master of the black arts, and doing the Sabbath justice is difficult enough within the confines of a typical World of Darkness supplement. The city's Kainites are trapped in a cancerous worm that atrophies around them. They exist in perpetual torment, crushed against the bodies of other squirming infants and poisoned by the oozing toxin issued by a severed umbilical cord. This is the world of darkness. This is Black Dog. This is Montreal by Night. How to use this book. Montreal by Night details the history, Kainites, and intrigues of one of the best Sabbath's oldest bastions in Northern America. In these pages, you will find everything necessary to run a chronicle in the Sabbath city of Montreal. Those familiar with other Vampire by Night books will find this one organized a bit differently. The Sabbath does not concern itself with clans to the degree of its Camarilla enemy does, so Kainites are grouped by coven rather than by blood lineage. The lifestyle, or rather death style, of Montreal Sabbath also receives much attention. They largely disdain the mortal world and have their own agendas, both subtle and bloody. Montreal by Night gives a nearly complete picture of this city. These pages are filled with potential allies, mentors, lovers, rivals, and friends. If you're already running a Sabbath Chronicle, your pack or coven could arrive in Montreal for its opening of the litany in the summer month, or they could arrive for the pack's own reasons. Otherwise, new Sabbath are sired fairly often to stage crusades, replace fallen comrades, or just for kicks. The appendix also provide information on the Sabbath's Inquisition. To make full use of Montreal by Night, you need Vampire the Masquerade, the Player's Guide to the Sabbath, and the Storyteller's Handbook of the Sabbath. Significant elements are also drawn from the Vampire Player Guides and the Storyteller's Handbook. Yeah, duh. None of these books is absolutely necessary, though. The Litany of Blood. The subtitle of Montreal by Night, Litany of Blood, is a reflection of the spiritual nature of the city's Sabbath. The litany is a record that commemorates sect members' achievements. The litany is a record that commemorates sect members' achievements, whether as individual, packs, or covens. Through legendary tales, eyewitness reports, and personal stories, as the history of the Sabbath is forged in blood, so too are the records of the litany written upon human and canine vellum creatures and scripted in vitae. The litany is not, however, just a record of the past, but a reminder of Cainite's obligation to his sect and to the sacrifice that makes the Sabbath what they are. The litany is therefore a tie that binds Cainites with more than just the bonds of blood. It is the symbolic art of the Sabbath, just as Montreal is the spiritual art of the Sabbath. Bam! Bam! Is there much else to say? No. Let me grab a bit more wine. Do you want to play with Daddy? Because Daddy wants to play with you. Where were we? Can I have the old text, please? Theme and mood. So farewell hope, and with hope farewell fear. Farewell remorse. All good to me is lost, evil be thou my good. John Milton, Paradise Lost. Come on, can I have all the text? Thank you. Theme. The central theme of Montreal by Night is faith. Faith, 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 beauty, faith. My faith is the front of shop. Faith, yeah, that's a good twist. It's the front of shop, but you don't want to see the back store because it's not faith. It's faithies. Faith is used ironically, not in definition, but in application. Faith among Montreal's Sabbath is a master of conviction more than of belief of religion. It is the driving force. My chair is too quickie, eh? It is the driving force behind those who would commit murder because they abhor murder. It is the justification of torture in the name of salvation. It explains the unimaginable, and is the defense of those who make martyrs of their victims. Faith. For the Sabbath, faith is the power to accomplish great things, even beyond the confines of pack and Voldery. The Sabbath severed the ties of mortality and morality and filled the resulting void with their own brand of faith. In Montreal, faith is not an unattainable ideal, but a reality, and its consequences can be both impersonal and destructive. Mood. Montreal is a city of enigmas. An onion, of almost infinite layers, if you will. Peel away one skin and several more await. Seductive in what they hide. Seductive in what they hide. Montreal is called the city of black miracles because of the dark faith of its nocturnal inhabitants. Those who live within its island confines, whether mortal or immortal, should be made to feel as if some terrible force looms just beyond the senses. Montreal is also a city of contrasts, where modern skyscrapers, towers, where modern skyscraper, let me start over. Montreal is also a city of contrast, where modern skyscrapers, towers, tower over. Montreal is also a city of fake smile. Montreal is also a city of contrast, where modern skyscraper tower over old churches and cathedrals. Notre patrimoine religieux, c'est sacré. C'est les slogans qu'il y a dans les panneaux dans la ville, là, parce qu'ils sont en train un peu de restaurer certaines églises. So yeah, they're actually saying that our religious patrimony, our religious patrimony is sacred, which is good. I like the slogan, and I like that we keep those churches in. Yeah, it's definitely a transcendence of places of cult into art pieces in a certain way within a city of concrete, glass, and steel. So why not? Yeah, unless like that would be even better if we could make them more like taken advantage of to do something good with it. That's the whole point of those churches. But then maybe I should go to church. My gosh, whoever knows me would be like, what has he gotten? The new and the old world clash, not only for mortals but for the undead. Mention of the Sabbath conjures images of the crime-infested streets of New York, the despair-gripped populace of Detroit, the black art of Mexico City, and the moral debauchery of Amsterdam. These modern interpretations of the Sabbath apply to Montreal, but the Kainites also make Montreal a city of knowledge and faith. New York and Mexico City attract the bloodthirsty. Detroit appealed to the downtrodden. Amsterdam lures the abusive. Montreal drew the scholarly and educated among the Sabbath. The problem with the acquisition of knowledge, however, is that it invariably exposes more mystery. One of the city's mood feeds the other. Knowledge is therefore power among the city's intellectual Kainites. There isn't one among them who doesn't have a stake in some secret or another. The damned. Damn girl. It is wiser to enter Montreal knowing what factions are at play than to enter blindly, which almost invariably leads to final death. If you did not get the in between the line comments, the following is by no means a detailed or comprehensive look at the factions of the city, but it is a quick and dirty guide to help newcomers avoid the pitfalls of Sabbath maneuvering. Sabbath power structure. Montreal is ruled by both ambition and conflicting vision. The Archbishop of the city is Carolina Valles, a foreigner in the eyes of the city's Sabbath. Beneath her, in the hierarchy of Montreal's three bishops, the Rose of the Widows' Coven, Lord Ezekiel of the Pact 2517, and Alfred Benezri, the Shepherds of Cain. Unfortunately, Archbishop Valles' rule is not supported by our bishops, and this sets the stage for a power struggle that could tear the city apart. Most of the city's Sabbath support one of three contenders vying for the archdiocese. Most of the city's Sabbath support one of three contenders vying for the archdiocese. Carolina Velez has the support of the Rose, but is struggling to retain her failing power and trying not to repeat the same mistake that plagued her in past appointments. Archbishop Ezekiel, representing the bloodlusts of many young Sabbath, have gathered the support of several potent covens. Ezekiel's quest is to break away from the dark legacy of his sire, the infernalist Sangri, but he is in danger of following the same path on his rise to power. The final contender in this political foray is Bishop Benedri, a prominent member of the Shepherds, a former inquisitor and proponent of the scholarly ways of Elder Sabbath. Despite his support by the city's despite his support by the city's more powerful covens, Benezri's camp is still haunted by his pact's error of placing the infernalist Sangri in power some years ago. This blunder prevents Bishop Benezri from getting the archdiocese or outright. Let me grab. Not women by the pussies. Don't do that. Let me grab my notebook with remnants of my past life. Here's the Emperor. He's not finished. Power and immaturity. Interesting. So, the Emperor. Maybe I should use that. So, Benezri and Sangri are tied. So, Carolina Velez is supported by the Rose. We said as the support of the Rose. So the Rose from the Widow. Supports Carolina Velez. Benezri and Ezekiel. So Ezekiel is not really supporting Carolina, but he's challenging her. Then Benedri. So Ezekiel is 25-17. Comment je fais ça? Tu utilises des couleurs. Ça va être merdique. I guess I could. So the rose is gonna be maybe I should do Carolina Velez in red because the rose should be the widow, so in yellow. then the shepherd should be green. And so blue will be 2517. So Carolina Valles, she's part of what? Okay, let's come back to finish page 13. Carolina Valles. Elle a tué un... Oh, donc Naila. Elle a tué un... Elle devrait avoir un coven, j'imagine. So, Archbishop Valles and her supporters. The covens that have lined up to Carolina Valles, the Archbishop imposed on Montreal by Cardinal Strathcona, form a loose coalition of Tivostava. The Cathari widows have considerable influence. The nomadic navigators have little weight in the city. The Archbishop's holds on power is precarious at best. Okay, well, I'm gonna jump, like I should keep on reading, just to make the interaction more interesting. It's gonna be research on the fly, going from one spot to another, and kind of trying to create a map of relationships to have a better understanding of, like at one glance, know which one is kind of as an issue with someone else. So I'll start with those four. So the Lost Angels. Death is everywhere. There are flies on the windscreen. For a start, reminding us we could be torn apart tonight. Depeche Mode, fly on the windscreen. The Lost Angels have come a long way since their creation 25 years ago in Mexico City. In the 1980s, their pack was among the few sent into the Anarch Free State to re-establish a Sabbath foothold in California, which was lost in the 60s. Unfortunately, the Sabbath effort was plagued by infernal problems. Archbishop Fuller, who was responsible for the operation, was inept and refused to grant his subcommanders any freedom. His methods were narrow-minded, resulting in a number of futile confrontations between the Sabbath and the Anarchs of Los Angeles. The Lost Angels suffered under Fuller's command, losing 3 packmates during their first 6 months in the city. They then disassociated themselves from their commander and infiltrated the Mexican, Latino, and vampire gangs in California. Establishing a power base, it was this manipulation that eventually saved the Sabbath effort in LA. Carolina Valles' contact with the Mexican community and local law officer prevented all-out war in LA and saved the Sabbath mission from absolute failure. That's good. So she's not so completely useless. Following these events, tension ran high in the Sabbath. Archbishop Fuller accused the Lost Angels of treachery. Valles accused him of incompetence. Cardinal Strathcona was forced to intercede and settle the dispute. Strathcona found Fuller guilty of Valles' charge and put her in charge of LA's Sabbath. In the years that followed, the Sabbath hidden among Los Angeles vampire gangs grew in number. Valles recognized that her sect didn't rule the city and would have to work in secret until it did. Valles' reputation as a fair leader spread, though she wasn't afraid to enforce discipline and meet out. Is that a typo? Though she was though she wasn't afraid to enforce discipline and mete out punishment. As the Sabbath in LA continued to increase in number and quietly gain power, Valles restricted pack activities and use of rights to avoid attracting attention. Perhaps she was too restrictive, though. In the 90s, she refused to call a crusade during the Rodney-King riots, even though her bishops pleaded with her to do so. Had the Sabbath attacked the Anarch at that point, the city might have fallen. In retrospect, Valles acknowledged her excessive conservatism. Later that month, the Los Angeles were recalled to Mexico, where they spent the following year. The LA mission was abandoned and the time began. The LA mission was abandoned for the time being. The Los Angeles were admonished. The Los Angeles were admonished and branded to remind them of their failure. But once again, Cardinal Strathcona intervened. Sangre's trial was nearing its end, and Montreal was in need of an archbishop. Strathcona had always been impressed with Valles. He recognized qualities in his own. He recognized qualities of his own in the Mexican beauty. The cardinal convened with the Sabbath regent and other cardinals. They agreed to give Valles the Archdiocese of Montreal as long as Strathcona agreed to assume personal responsibility for her action. The Los Angeles greeted the news with enthusiasm, but Valles was apprehensive. Going from disgrace to leadership of the oldest Sabbath enclave in North America would earn her coven the enmity of many. Yet she also saw it as a chance to redeem herself in the eyes of the Sabbath. If you don't try, you don't know. The Los Angeles made a smooth transition into Montreal. Their accomplishment quickly won over a number of the city's Sabbath. The shepherds were initially wary of Valles, but the angels made efforts to attend a number of shepherds' rites and to consult with the shepherds on important matters. Ezekiel's pack is the only group that only recent. Ezekiel's pack is only. Ezekiel's pack is the only group that openly resents the archbishop and the angels. The pack leaders have come close to open confrontation. So, the Lost Angels. Yeah. The Widows. $25.17. And who was the last one? then Benezri. Benez. Oh, the shepherds. Sheep. Sheep. Bam. Cool. Is support relatively the Lost Angels. I don't remember where I was. I can start again from there. Whatever. Okay. Well, I think we're good. Yeah, it's been an hour. I will keep on doing that in a more more trying to figure out things on the fly, because I want to map out properly the relationships in between the different clans, well, covens, and I've, because right now, like when you're supposed to kind of discover like 30 characters at a time, like in one shot, like in one book, like it's like especially when it's like tabletop RPG, like um there's so much lore, there's so much to connect, and like I'm kind of getting confused between the characters, as many of us do. And so having a clearer idea of where the different covens and how they interact with each others would be good. So I'll do a kind of how do you call that again? I'll do something like that. A genogram. Because I think that would be cool. That's the genogram for Vampire le Fruit Défendu, the game that I'm putting together. So that's really complex, especially when you're just by yourself trying to come up with like 30 characters that are relatively unique and different. It's quite a challenge. But I'll do one for Montreal by night, and I want to place the different. I like maps as well, so like mind maps and geographical maps. That's my one of my nerdy side. So yeah, I'll place the different layers and venues around the city because I want to know that anyway. I want, there's the art that is supposed to be close to Saint Michel or something. I'm like, that would be cool to go and check. So I need to know where it is exactly. I was kind of maybe thinking of dropping by the other day, but I was like, I'm not sure about the proper address anymore. So I'll do that and I'll share that probably. Or maybe I could share it on Patreon. if some people are actually interested in some details around Montreal by night, that can be an extra way of incentivizing you to found the game if you like what it's looking like. I started a new art pieces with a friend today. So I kind of, yeah, I'm quite excited about the piece because it looks like it could be really cool. So we kind of brainstormed a bit, and he's going to do the full. So he's gonna do a card for me, and yeah, that's gonna be an interesting card when it's done. I can't wait to see the result myself. I have like a cool idea in mind, so I hope it's gonna be close to that. That would be fun. Um, okay, it's gonna be all for today. Welcome back tomorrow, maybe. I always find an hour at the end of the day, unless I come back way too late. But I always find a bit of time um, to have a chat and a bit of reading. Um, so hopefully we'll continue the mind map, the genogram, and the actual map. I could create a map on mind map and start putting the points when I'm going through some details. And that is it. I will see you next time. I can't wait to keep on polishing that thing, because I think that could be the way of exposure while I still build the game. That could be a way to market it, research it, document it, maybe get some fellow tabletop RPG players to enjoy the journey with me. Gay or not, like, you don't have to be gay to enjoy Montreal by night. And that is it. I'm not gonna. Should I start doing an edit? Maybe at the end, when I've done the other half of the book that I started doing in Sydney. But I think maybe that could be my mission for this next month, December, to kind of reread properly and maybe check what parts need to be re-put together. And see how that goes. Once I have like all the recording relatively quite complete, even if nothing is ever going to be complete, permanent, or perfect. That provides an interesting. I'm speaking a bit of in French and English. It could be interesting to do a joke for the CPP, but because complete, perfection, and permanent, that would be CPP, and that would be kind of a nerd joke for C++. And maybe I can do like some Chinese propaganda or something to kind of do the point of making jokes at the CCP. So that could be fun. I'll think about it. I need my brain to settle on that idea first. But for now, I will see you